My mill treats me like an incompetent child, and my husband just says that's just mom. Am I crazy for expecting him to defend me? It started subtly, as these things often do. When Mark and I first got serious, Carol, his mom, was all smiles and welcoming warmth. She'd host us for dinner, ask about my job as a graphic designer, and even compliment my rather adventurous recipes. I remember thinking how lucky I was. My own mom is lovely, but a bit reserved, and Carol seemed so outgoing, so eager to embrace me. Mark would beam whenever she'd say something nice about me, like, "Sarah, this lasagna is even better than mine. You'll have to give me the recipe, though I doubt an old dog like me can learn new tricks." I'd laugh, flattered, and Mark would squeeze my hand under the table. We lived in a decent-sized city, vibrant enough to have its own culture but not so overwhelming that you felt anonymous. Mark and I had a cozy little 2-bedroom rental downtown, close to my studio and his engineering firm. Life felt good, like a well-composed photograph, everything in its right place. The shift began after we got married, about 3 years ago now. It wasn't a sudden slamming door, more like a slow, creaking hinge that eventually got stuck in a mostly closed position, leaving me feeling perpetually on the outside looking in. The compliments dwindled, replaced by suggestions, then corrections, and finally, outright criticisms packaged as just trying to help. And Mark, my wonderful, supportive Mark, the man who could debate complex engineering problems with fierce intelligence, seemed to transform into a passive observer whenever his mother was around. His mantra became, "That's just mom, honey. She doesn't mean anything by it." But she did mean it. Or at least, it felt like she did. Every visit, every phone call, chipped away at my confidence, making me feel like a bumbling, incapable child. I'd cook dinner, and she'd watch me like a hawk. "Are you sure you want to add that much salt, dear? Mark has to watch his blood pressure, you know." Mark's blood pressure was perfectly fine, he was a fit 32-year-old. Or, "Oh, you're using that brand of olive oil? I always find the imported Italian kind has a much better flavor profile for sautéing." My choice of olive oil, apparently, was a gateway to culinary failure. Our apartment became her critique canvas. "This place is lovely, Sarah, but don't you find these dark curtains make the living room a bit somber? Some nice, light sheers would really brighten it up. And the way you've arranged the throw pillows on the sofa, it's a little haphazard. Let me just..." And she'd proceed to fluff and reposition, her movements efficient and dismissive of my original arrangement. I'd stand there, clutching my lukewarm coffee, a polite smile plastered on my face while a silent scream built in my chest. Mark would usually be in the other room, conveniently looking for something or taking a call. When I'd mention it later, gently, because I didn't want to sound like a shrew, like, "Mark, did you hear what your mom said about the curtains?" He'd shrug. "Yeah, well, she's got her opinions. Don't let it bother you." Don't let it bother me. How could it not bother me? It was my home. My cooking. My taste. My life. And I was constantly being told, in 1,000 little ways, that I was doing it all wrong. Am I crazy for expecting my own husband to notice, to care, to maybe, just maybe, say something? The incidents piled up, each one a small paper cut, but collectively, they were bleeding me dry. There was the time I excitedly told her I was taking a pottery class. "Oh, pottery," she'd said, her tone flat. "That's a messy hobby, isn't it? Are you sure you have the patience for that, Sarah? You always seem a bit high-strung." I'd just landed a major client at work, a project I was incredibly proud of, but my new hobby was apparently a sign of my inherent lack of composure. Mark, who had been right there, just chuckled and said, "Mom, Sarah's got plenty of patience. She puts up with me, doesn't she?" He thought he was being charming, diffusing the situation. But all I heard was him glossing over her insult, making a joke of it, and implicitly agreeing that I was the one who needed to put up with things. Then there was the Christmas incident. We always alternated holidays, and that year it was Christmas Eve at our place, Christmas Day at hers. I spent weeks planning, decorating, baking. I wanted everything to be perfect. Carol arrived, took one look at my carefully curated cheese board, and said, "Oh, you're serving brie with the rind on? Most people prefer it trimmed, dear. It can be a bit much for some palates." Later, as I was basting the turkey, she hovered. "Are you sure it's at the right temperature? It looks a little pale." My turkeys are always beautifully browned by now. My turkey, when it came out, was golden brown and perfectly cooked, but her earlier comments had already cast a pall over my culinary efforts. Mark just kept refilling her wine glass, saying, "Mom, everything Sarah makes is delicious. Relax." But he never said, "Mom, Sarah knows what she's doing. Stop undermining her." The worst part was the slow erosion of my own self-belief. I started second-guessing everything. Did I put too much salt in the soup? Were the curtains really that somber? Was I, in fact, too high-strung for pottery? Her voice became a permanent resident in my head, a critical inner monologue that wasn't even mine. I found myself becoming quieter, more hesitant, especially around her. I dress more conservatively when she was due to visit, choose blander recipes, avoid talking about anything I was genuinely excited about, fearing her inevitable pinprick of negativity. I tried talking to Mark, really talking. Multiple times. We'd be in bed, the city lights painting soft patterns on the ceiling, and I'd gather my courage. "Mark," I'd begin, my voice trembling slightly, "it really hurts me when your mom criticizes everything I do. It makes me feel like I'm not good enough." He'd sigh, a long, weary sound that instantly made me feel guilty for bringing it up. "Sarah, I know it seems that way to you, but that's just her way. She's from a different generation. They're more direct. She doesn't mean to be hurtful. But it is hurtful, Mark. Whether she means it or not, it hurts. And it's constant. It's like she's always looking for something to find fault with. Why can't you see that?" "I do see that you're upset," he'd say, pulling me closer, stroking my hair. "But honestly, honey, I think you're taking it too personally. She critiques me too, you know. Always has. You just have to let it roll off your back." "But it's different with you," I'd argue, pulling away slightly so I could see his face in the dim light. "She's your mom. You're used to it. And she's not questioning your fundamental competence as an adult, as a partner. She makes me feel like an idiot child." "She doesn't think you're an idiot child, babe. That's just mom. She probably thinks she's being helpful." "Helpful?" "By telling me my choice of laundry detergent is all wrong for delicates she assumes I'm too stupid to handle? Or that the way I load the dishwasher is inefficient? Or that my career goals are sweet but not very practical?" Those were all real examples, verbatim. He'd usually get defensive then. "Okay, maybe she can be a bit overbearing sometimes. But what do you want me to do? Start a fight with my own mother? She's not going to change, Sarah. She's almost 70. This is who she is." "I don't want you to start a fight, Mark. I just want you to support me. To be on my team. To gently tell her to back off sometimes. To show her that we're a unit, and that her constant criticism isn't welcome in our home, with our marriage." My voice would crack with unshed tears. "And cause a huge family drama? For what? So she stops commenting on your throw pillows? It seems like a small thing to blow up our family peace over." A small thing. My feelings, my sense of security in my own home, my sanity, those were small things to him, apparently, when weighed against the possibility of upsetting his mother. Each of these conversations ended the same way, with me feeling unheard, dismissed, and utterly alone. And with a growing resentment towards the man I loved, a man who was supposed to be my partner, my protector. I started wondering if I was the crazy one. Was I too sensitive? Was this normal mother-in-law behavior that everyone else just tolerated with a smile? I'd scroll through online forums, looking for similar stories, and find plenty. But I also found stories where husbands stepped up, where boundaries were set. Why couldn't Mark be one of those husbands? One Saturday, about 6 months ago, was particularly bad. Carol had invited herself over for lunch. She'd called Mark that morning, saying she was in the neighborhood and would just pop by. This often happened. I was in the middle of a freelance project with a tight deadline, papers spread all over the dining table. I scrambled to clear it, feeling flustered and unprepared. She waltzed in, surveyed the slight disarray of my creative process, and said, "Oh dear, Sarah, still working on a Saturday? You work too hard. A woman needs to prioritize her home, you know." I gritted my teeth. "It's a big project, Carol. And I enjoy my work." "Yes, well, enjoying work is one thing, but a happy home makes a happy husband." She glanced pointedly at Mark, who was already raiding the fridge for snacks for her. He just smiled benignly. Lunch was a tuna salad I'd whipped up. A bit too much mayonnaise, don't you think, Sarah? She commented after her first bite. And celery in tuna salad? That's an unusual choice. I just mumbled, I like it that way. Later, while I was making coffee, she followed me into the kitchen. You know, Mark tells me you're thinking about redecorating the guest room. I have some wonderful ideas. That pale yellow you were considering? It will look terribly washed out. You need something with a bit more warmth, perhaps a terracotta. And the furniture you have in there is so mismatched. I hadn't discussed any specific colors with Mark, it was a vague idea we'd kicked around. How did she even know about the pale yellow? Had Mark told her, and if so, why? We're just in the early stages of thinking about it, Carol, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Well, don't make any hasty decisions. I have some fabric swatches at home I can bring over. And that old dresser you have? It really needs to go. It makes the whole room look shabby. I felt my composure starting to crack. That dresser was a piece I'd lovingly restored myself. It was one of my favorite things. When she finally left, after rearranging the magazines on our coffee table because they were cluttered, I turned to Mark, my hands shaking. Mark, did you hear her? About the guest room? About my work? About the damn tuna salad? He was channel surfing, seemingly unconcerned. Yeah, Mom's got strong opinions. What's new? What's new is that I'm sick of it. I burst out, louder than I intended. I'm sick of her waltzing in here and picking apart every single thing I do, every choice I make, every item in our home. And I'm sick of you sitting there and letting her do it. He muted the TV, his expression shifting from casual to annoyed. Sarah, what is the big deal? She's just talking. Words. Why do you let her get to you so much? Because they're not just words, Mark. They're constant judgments. They make me feel small and stupid. And you're my husband. You're supposed to have my back, not tell me I'm overreacting. I'm not telling you you're overreacting, he said, his voice rising to match mine. I'm telling you that this is who my mother is, and you need to find a way to deal with it because she's not going to change. Getting angry isn't going to help. And what is your solution, Mark? For me to just sit here and take it indefinitely? To let her undermine me at every turn? To feel like a guest in my own home, constantly walking on eggshells? Is that what you want for me? For us? Of course not. But you're exaggerating. It's not that bad. Not that bad for you, I shot back, tears welling up. You're not the one she's targeting. You don't have to listen to her passive-aggressive digs about your career, your cooking, your very personality. She adores you. You're her perfect son. I'm just the inadequate woman who married you. He stood up then, running a hand through his hair in frustration. That's not true, Sarah. She likes you. Likes me? I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. She tolerates me, Mark. And barely. And you enable her. Every time you say that's just Mom, you're telling her it's okay to treat me this way. You're telling me it's okay for her to treat me this way. And it's not. The argument went around in circles, like all the others, but this time it was more heated, more desperate on my part. It ended with me crying in the bedroom and Mark sleeping on the sofa, a rare and miserable occurrence for us. Nothing was resolved. If anything, I felt even more hopeless. He just didn't get it. Or, worse, he didn't want to. I started to withdraw, not just from Carol, but from Mark too, in subtle ways. I stopped sharing my work frustrations with him, because what was the point if he couldn't even see the frustrations happening right in front of him? I stopped suggesting we host dinners, because the thought of Carol in my kitchen, her critical eyes following my every move, filled me with dread. Our intimacy suffered. It's hard to feel close to someone when you feel so fundamentally unsupported by them in a crucial area of your life. The city around us, once a source of shared adventures, now just felt like the backdrop to my quiet unhappiness. Even our little apartment started to feel less like a sanctuary and more like a stage for Carol's performances and my silent anguish. I confided in my best friend, Lisa, over coffee one afternoon. She listened patiently as I poured out months, years, of accumulated hurts. Sarah, that's awful, she said, her eyes full of sympathy. And Mark really doesn't say anything? He says, "That's just Mom." Or that I'm too sensitive. Or that she doesn't mean it. Or that he doesn't want to cause family drama. I recited his excuses, my voice flat. "But sweetie, her behavior is the family drama," Lisa said gently. "And he's choosing his comfort, his desire to avoid confrontation with her, over your feelings. That's not okay." Hearing it from someone else, so plainly, was both validating and devastating. It wasn't just in my head. I wasn't crazy. "What do I do, Lisa?" I asked, my voice small. "I love him. But I can't live like this. I feel like I'm disappearing." "You need to make him understand the stakes, Sarah. This isn't just about throw pillows or tuna salad. This is about your marriage. This is about respect. If he can't or won't stand up for you, then you have some serious decisions to make." Her words echoed in my mind for weeks. The stakes. My marriage. My self-respect. Was I willing to sacrifice my own well-being to maintain a superficial peace with my mother-in-law, a peace that Mark seemed to value more than my happiness? The breaking point came, as it often does, not during a huge, dramatic blow-up, but during a seemingly small, almost mundane interaction that just happened to be the final straw. It was a Sunday afternoon. Mark and I were planning a small vacation, our first in over a year. We were looking at brochures for a quiet cabin retreat by a lake, a few hours' drive from the city. We were actually excited, a rare feeling of shared joy that had been missing for a while. Carol called Mark's phone. He put it on speaker, as he sometimes did when he was busy with something else, in this case, circling potential cabin locations on a map. "Hi Mom, what's up?" Mark said cheerfully. "Oh, nothing much, dear. Just wondering what you two are up to." Her voice was syrupy sweet. "We're planning a little getaway," Mark said. "Just a long weekend at a cabin by Miller Lake." There was a pause. Then Carol said, "Miller Lake? Oh, that's rustic. Are you sure, Mark? It can be quite buggy up there this time of year. And the amenities are usually very basic. Sarah, are you really the outdoorsy type? I always pictured you more of a spa and shopping kind of girl." Before I could even open my mouth, before the familiar knot of frustration could fully tighten in my stomach, she continued, "And a cabin? Just the two of you? Won't you be bored? You know, your cousin David and his wife just got back from a lovely all-inclusive in Cancun. Perhaps you should look into something like that. More sophisticated." I stared at the phone, speechless. She hadn't just criticized our choice of vacation, she'd questioned my character, implied I was too high maintenance for a simple cabin, and suggested we emulate someone else's superior vacation. All in one breath. Mark chuckled. That damn chuckle again. "Mom, it'll be fun. We like rustic. And Sarah's plenty outdoorsy when she wants to be." He winked at me, as if sharing an inside joke. But it wasn't funny. His defense was so weak, so dismissive of the actual barbs in her comments. He was, once again, normalizing her behavior, downplaying her criticisms. "Well, if you're sure," Carol said, her tone clearly indicating she thought we were making a terrible mistake. "Just be careful with the cooking facilities. Those old cabin stoves can be terribly unreliable. You wouldn't want Sarah to have another kitchen disaster." Another kitchen disaster? What was she even referring to? The time I slightly overcooked some pasta 3 years ago? My blood boiled. This wasn't just an insult, it was a fabrication, a way to paint me as perpetually incompetent. Mark, however, seemed oblivious. "Okay, Mom. We'll be careful. Gotta go, we're in the middle of planning. Talk to you later." He hung up, still smiling. "So, this cabin has a fireplace." I just stared at him. The brochures were a blur. The lake, the trees, the promise of peace, it all dissolved into a red haze of anger and hurt. "Mark," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Yeah, babe?" He looked up, finally noticing my expression. His smile faltered. "What's wrong?" "What's wrong?" I repeated, my voice rising. "What's wrong is that your mother just insinuated I'm a delicate flower who can't handle the outdoors, that our vacation choice is boring and unsophisticated, and then topped it off by implying I'm a terrible cook prone to kitchen disasters. And you just chuckled and said we'll be careful with the stove. Are you serious? He frowned. Sarah, come on. She was just making conversation. You know how she is. She worries. Worries? I stood up, knocking a brochure to the floor. She wasn't worried, Mark. She was demeaning me. She was belittling our choices, belittling me. And you just sat there and let her. You even played along. I did not play along. He protested, standing up too. I told her we liked rustic. I told her you were outdoorsy. That's not the point, Mark. I was shouting now, past caring if the neighbors heard. The point is that she constantly tears me down, and you never, ever defend me properly. You never say, Mom, that's inappropriate. You never say, Mom, Sarah is perfectly capable, and I'd appreciate it if you stopped criticizing her. You never say, Mom, that's hurtful, and I won't tolerate you speaking to my wife that way. Never. Because it would cause a massive fight, he yelled back. And for what? She's an old woman. Her words don't have to have so much power over you. They have power because you give them power, Mark, I cried, tears streaming down my face now. Every time you excuse her, every time you tell me I'm too sensitive, you're validating her and invalidating me. You're telling me that her comfort is more important than my pain. You're telling me that our marriage, our partnership, takes a backseat to your fear of upsetting your mother. That's not fair, Sarah. I love you. Of course, you're important to me. Then show it, I sobbed. Because right now, I don't feel loved. I feel abandoned. I feel like I'm fighting this battle all alone, and the person who's supposed to be my staunchest ally is standing on the sidelines, telling me to just take the punches better. He looked stricken, his anger momentarily replaced by a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher, confusion? Hurt? Guilt? Sarah, I don't know what you want me to say, he stammered. I want you to understand. I choked out. I want you to finally understand what this is doing to me. To us. I can't do this anymore, Mark. I can't. I'm tired of feeling like a failure, like an idiot, like I'm constantly being judged and found wanting. And I'm tired of my own husband making excuses for the person who makes me feel that way. I sank onto the sofa, utterly spent. The fight had drained out of me, leaving behind a vast, aching emptiness. I think, I said, my voice barely a whisper, I think I need some space. I think I need to go stay with Lisa for a while. Mark stared at me, his face pale. What? No. Sarah, don't say that. We can fix this. I'll talk to her. Will you, Mark? I looked up at him, my eyes searching his. Will you really talk to her? Or will you just tell her to be nicer to Sarah and then tell me you've handled it, while nothing actually changes? Because I don't think I can survive another round of that. He was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the fallen brochure on the floor. The vibrant image of a peaceful lakeside cabin seemed to mock us. I don't want you to go, he said, his voice hoarse. And I don't want to go, I replied, my heart aching. But Mark, I feel like I'm drowning here. And you're the only one who can throw me a lifeline, but you keep pretending you don't see me struggling. I stood up again, feeling a strange sense of resolve amidst the turmoil. I'm going to pack a bag. We both need to think. And you, Mark, you need to decide what's more important, keeping the peace with your mother at any cost, or fighting for your wife and your marriage. I went into the bedroom and pulled out an overnight bag. My hands were steady, but my insides were a wreck. Every instinct screamed at me to stay, to try again, to not give up on the man I loved. But another, quieter voice, the one that had been silenced for too long, whispered that this was necessary. That sometimes, the only way to make someone see is to walk away, even if it's just for a little while. Mark didn't follow me into the bedroom. I could hear him pacing in the living room, the floorboards creaking under his restless feet. When I emerged with my bag, he was standing by the window, looking out at the city street below, his shoulders slumped. He turned as I approached the door. His eyes were red-rimmed. Sarah, please, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Don't. Let's talk. Really talk. No excuses. Just talk. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. This was it. The moment of truth. Was this another empty promise, or had something finally broken through his wall of denial? What would be different this time, Mark? I asked, my voice weary. He walked towards me slowly, stopping a few feet away. I heard you, Sarah. I mean, I really heard you this time. About me abandoning you. About me choosing her comfort. I never saw it that way. Not really. I always thought I was protecting you from bigger fights, from her being even worse. His honesty, raw and hesitant, caught me off guard. Worse how? I asked. He ran a hand over his face. My mom. She's not just critical. She can be manipulative. When I was a kid, if I didn't do what she wanted, or if I disappointed her, she wouldn't yell. She'd just get this terribly sad look. She'd martyrs herself. It's fine, Mark. Don't worry about your old mother. I'll just sit here alone in the dark. Or she'd bring up every sacrifice she ever made for me. Guilt. She's a master of guilt. And Dad always just gave in. He'd say, just do what your mother wants, Mark. It's easier. So I learned to just make things easy. To avoid the guilt trips, the emotional blackmail. He looked at me, his eyes pleading for understanding. When she started in on you, I just defaulted to my old playbook. Minimize, deflect, avoid the blow-up. I thought if I didn't make a big deal of it, she'd eventually stop, or you just get used to it, like I did. I know that sounds awful. But I was afraid that if I confronted her directly, she'd turn on me, or worse, she'd escalate her tactics with you, try to turn you against me, or me against you. I was trying to keep the peace, but I see now. I see that the peace I was keeping was hers, not ours. And it was at your expense. Tears welled in my eyes again, but this time, they weren't just tears of hurt. There was a flicker of something else. Hope? Mark, I said softly, I understand that she's difficult. I understand your history with her. But I'm your wife. I'm supposed to be your priority. We're supposed to be a team. When you don't stand up for me, it feels like you're choosing her over me, every single time. I know, he whispered, stepping closer and gently taking my hand. His fingers were cold. I know. And I am so sorry, Sarah. I've been a coward. I've been a terrible husband in this one, very important way. And I've let you suffer because of my own weakness, my own baggage with her. He looked directly into my eyes. You asked me if I was crazy for expecting me to defend you. No, Sarah. You're not crazy. You're absolutely right. And I've been a damned fool for not seeing it, for not doing it. What she said today. About the cabin, about you. It was cruel. And my reaction was pathetic. I see that now. Listening to you, really listening, it was like a filter came off. I saw her through your eyes for a moment, and it was ugly. He squeezed my hand. Please, don't go. Stay. Let me try to fix this. Let me show you that I can be the husband you deserve. I need to learn how to set boundaries with her, for both our sakes. For our marriage. It won't be easy for me. It's decades of conditioning. But I'll do it. I have to do it. His sincerity felt real. The pain in his eyes, the self-reproach in his voice, it wasn't the defensive Mark I was used to. This was a man who seemed to have finally grasped the enormity of his failure. I hesitated. The bag still felt heavy in my other hand. Could I trust this? Could he really change? Could we really change? What will you do? I asked. How will you set boundaries? First, he said, his jaw firming with a resolve I hadn't seen before when it came to his mother, I'm going to call her. Tonight. And I'm going to tell her that her comments about you and about our vacation were unacceptable. I'm going to tell her that she hurt you, and by extension, she hurt me. And that it needs to stop. That we love her, but we will not tolerate disrespect in our marriage or our home. I was stunned. This was more than I had ever dared to hope for. And if she reacts badly? I asked, voicing my fear. If she gives you the guilt trip, the martyr act? Then she reacts badly, he said, his voice still firm. I'm not a kid anymore, Sarah. I can't let her control me with guilt. Our happiness, your happiness, is more important than avoiding her displeasure. If she can't respect our boundaries, then we'll have to limit our contact with her. It's as simple, and as difficult, as that. I searched his face, looking for any sign of wavering, any hint of his old avoidance. But all I saw was a new, steely determination. Slowly, I let out the breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. I lowered the bag to the floor. "Okay, Mark," I said, my voice a little shaky. "Okay. I'll stay. We'll try." A wave of relief washed over his face. He reached out and pulled me into a hug, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. But it was a good kind of breathless. "Thank you," he whispered into my hair. "Thank you, Sarah. I won't let you down again. I promise. This changes now." That night, he did call her. I sat on the bed, pretending to read but listening to every word from the living room. His voice was calm but firm. I heard him say things like, "Mom, I need to talk to you about what you said earlier. It wasn't okay. And, Sarah is my wife, and I love her. When you criticize her, you're criticizing my choices, and you're hurting both of us." There were pauses, and I could imagine Carol's reactions on the other end, the surprise, the indignation, perhaps the tears. But Mark held his ground. "I understand this might be hard for you to hear, Mom, but this is important. We need you to respect our decisions and treat Sarah with the kindness and respect she deserves. If that's something you can't do, then we'll need to reevaluate how often we see each other." When he came back into the bedroom, he looked drained but also lighter. "How did it go?" I asked softly. "She cried," he said, sitting beside me. "She said she never meant to hurt anyone, that she was just trying to be helpful. The usual. But I didn't back down. I reiterated that her impact was hurtful, regardless of her intent. I told her we love her, but things need to change. She said she'd try to be more mindful," he sighed. "I don't know if it will stick, Sarah. It might take time. It might take more conversations like this. But it's a start." "It's a huge start, Mark," I said, taking his hand. "Thank you. That must have been incredibly difficult." He nodded. "It was. But not as difficult as seeing the pain I've caused you by not doing it sooner." The weeks that followed weren't magically perfect. Carol was noticeably cooler on her next couple of phone calls. She made a few pointedly saccharine comments to me that felt almost worse than the old criticisms, like she was overcorrecting with passive aggression. But Mark was different. If she started to veer into even slightly critical territory about me or our choices, he'd gently but firmly redirect the conversation or state clearly, "Mom, we're happy with that decision," or "Sarah's got that handled, thanks." He started preempting her visits too. If she called to say she was in the neighborhood, Mark would say, "That's great, Mom, but today's not a good day for us. How about we plan something for next week?" He started consulting me before agreeing to any family commitments involving her, making sure I was comfortable. There was one instance, a few weeks later, when she came over for a prearranged dinner. I'd made a new recipe, a Thai green curry. She eyed it skeptically. "Oh, spicy food? Are you sure that's wise, Mark, with your sensitive stomach?" Mark, who has an iron stomach, just smiled and said, "Mom, this looks delicious. And Sarah knows I love her curry." Then, he looked directly at her and added, "And my stomach is fine. Please, just enjoy the meal Sarah prepared for us." Carol blinked, a little surprised at his directness. She didn't say another critical word for the rest of the evening. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. I caught Mark's eye across the table, and he gave me a small, almost imperceptible wink. My heart swelled. He was trying. He was really, truly trying. It's been about 4 months since that awful Sunday and Mark's subsequent turnaround. Things aren't perfect. Carol still has her moments, and I still feel a reflexive tension when she's around. But the difference is Mark. He's my partner again, my ally. He's present. He listens to me, validates my feelings, and consistently, if sometimes awkwardly, runs interference with his mom. He checks in with me after her visits or calls. "How are you feeling about that? Did anything she say bother you?" We talk more now, Mark and I, about everything. The near miss of me leaving served as a massive wake-up call for both of us, not just about his relationship with his mother, but about our own communication, our own needs. We're more honest with each other, more vulnerable. We're learning to fight for our marriage, not just in it. Sometimes, I still wonder if I was too patient for too long, if I should have put my foot down sooner. But then I look at Mark, at the effort he's making, at the way he now prioritizes our unit, and I feel a deep sense of gratitude that we found our way back from that precipice. He's still Mama's boy in some ways, he loves her, and I wouldn't want that to change. But he's my husband first. And that has made all the difference. The other day, Carol called. She mentioned she'd seen an article about designers working from home and said, almost casually, "You know, Sarah, it must be so isolating working by yourself all day. Maybe you should consider getting an office share, dear, for the social interaction." Before I could even formulate a polite deflection, Mark, who was on speakerphone beside me, said, "Thanks for the thought, Mom, but Sarah loves her current setup. She's incredibly productive and actually really enjoys the peace and quiet to focus. Plus, she has plenty of social interaction with clients and friends." He gave my hand a squeeze. Carol just said, "Oh? Well, as long as she's happy." And changed the subject. I looked at Mark, and he smiled. A genuine, supportive smile. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't crazy for expecting him to defend me. I was right. And he had finally, truly understood. Our little apartment in our mid-sized city suddenly felt like a sanctuary again, a place where I was safe, respected, and unconditionally loved. And that, I realized, was worth fighting for. We still haven't taken that cabin trip to Miller Lake. Life got busy. But we're planning it again, for the fall. And this time, I know it will be peaceful, in every sense of the word.